I was told that I didn't have to do an introduction, that that's going to be added, but let's do a slight one anyway. Today's Ring in the Week is Alexander Chandler, who is running for Congress up in Massachusetts. What is your district? Which number?
It's Massachusetts third.
Third.
Third. Yes,
Okay.
North Boston by the New Hampshire border.
Excellent. So, what has your experience been? I think you've been campaigning for a year, haven't you?
The better part of the year, I announced on November 15th, and our circumstances that our member of Congress, Nikki Tsongas, she's retiring. So it's an open seat. And I announced in November, as I said, the general experience has been extremely positive. What I tell people to sum it up is that when you actually go out and speak with thousands of people, you will find that people are much better than the America you see on TV. From thousands of conversations, thousands of doors. That is my big takeaway, and that there is just a hunger for authenticity, for optimism, for change, for expertise, and frankly, as I'm offering in modesty all of those things, it's been very positive. Our primary is on September 4th, so we're getting close to the end of this part of the journey, but I'm really excited.
How many primary candidates do you have, opponents?
We are down to 10.
10. Oh, wow.
Yes, yes, because I've lost count how many we've had if you factor all those who've gone in and those who have left, but at least 14 or 15. And again, it's part of it is because it is an open seat. It's in a district that has historically been relatively safe democratic, but I take nothing for granted.
Right.
Because there are a number of cities and towns in our district that did vote for Donald Trump, and people can be surprised by that in Massachusetts. But as I said, this district tracks along the New Hampshire border, and the politics and a lot of the needs in this district are not what you see in Boston or Cambridge. They're rather different.
Right.
We have mill towns that have struggled to kind of catch a lot of the economic recovery that the rest of the Commonwealth, the rest of the country has. And we've got inner cities that have had problems for a long time, and rural communities, farming communities that don't really feel spoken with either from Boston or for Washington. So I've been making a point of getting out to all of those places and making sure that I am listening to them and carrying their concerns with me.
We sound very similar. What you said about your takeaway is something that I also tell people, and I think it's very important. Here in Georgia, particularly in my district, we live in a red district, and people are skeptical that we can win. But what I tell them is when I'm out there talking to people, what I've learned is that we have so much in common, and that they're just happy that you are, at their door talking to them about issues that actually matter to them, and you provide solutions. In this district, we have 17 counties, and it's the entire coast of Georgia. So it's 17 counties. Most of them are rural. And it has been very important that we talk to people who are disenfranchised. They feel ignored, they feel neglected, and they feel that government isn't meeting their needs. We have to represent them. We have to be their voice, and they see that. They're very receptive of it. And you're right, it's not as negative as what is on the media and even what people are talking about in social media. It's been very positive. I can count on one hand the number of negative responses I've gotten in 14 months.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly so. And I'm going to echo just the enthusiasm. You see me nodding because I often use the one-hand metaphor, the one-hand explanation to explain just how intensely this is true, that there is this receptivity. Now, I'll say that when I talk about negative reactions, that's to me as a candidate, or to me being at their door, there are people that, they're hurting. They'll have some negative things to say about what's not being done in politics and that they're not being heard.
Right.
But the very fact that you're at the door as a candidate, I'm surprised by this part, that I'll have people that are frequent primary voters. So these are people who have been involved in the process for some time. I mean, we have kind of newly activated activists, but then we have these kind of long-term people that have been involved. And they said, I've never had a candidate come to my door themselves and ask me what I think and what matters to me, and then to ask me for my vote. They just never had that, and that is disappointing. But at least what I also draw from it that's positive is that I'm talking with you, and you're someone else that's doing this, and I've talked with other candidates throughout the country that have seen that this is an opening. And if, my goodness, just some simple, very old-fashioned approaches where we can engage people again can be part of what can remedy this situation, well, my goodness, let's just all get about doing it, and that'll get us at least part of the way, I think, to getting some engagement back in politics and trust and some faith back in. And I mean, what can I say? You'd be surprised, and I imagine you've seen some of this too, the unpredictable supporters that you can get. I have people who are going to vote for me in this primary, and I'm considered a very progressive candidate. I have very left positions on a lot of issues. Mm-hmm. I have people that voted for Donald Trump that are going to vote for me in this primary, simply because even though the policies we might not be 100%, and in some cases far from it, there is a feeling of faith that, all right, I'm at least someone who's recognizing where they're coming from, that I've struggled too in different ways, and then I can bring their struggles, but not just the negative struggle, but the hopes, the aspirations, the things that they're hoping for from their politics to DC.
Absolutely. People want somebody who can be a leader, somebody they can have confidence in, and somebody who is focused on bold platform issues that directly affect them. So which issues, what are your 3 top issues?
For us, it's really the stagnant wages, where, I mean, Massachusetts has pretty low unemployment, but the kind of underemployment, the wages not moving, that's one.
Right.
Healthcare costs, because here we've got near universal healthcare, though I'm very much for a single payer healthcare. The Medicare for All system is just, as part of that, getting the costs down and having people not have to negotiate with a health insurance company ever again. Right. And then batting the opioid epidemic, because up here it's just devastating, and it's a matter of not enough beds. The treatment isn't properly integrated. You have people that are literally dying waiting to get into treatment. And for myself, all of these issues have personal nexus, because my father had multiple sclerosis. My birth father, he struggled with addiction to alcohol and to prescription drugs, and it all contributed to his death when I was 17. So I take all of that on board very personally. And then from a healthcare nexus, I worked on the board of a community health center, and I have experience with both what's possible and not possible under the current system, and it drives me to want to change the system. I've been without health insurance myself, and I know like to be in pain and unable to work because of it. And the fact that I can bring a personal narrative to all of these issues, as well as a very specific and problem-solving oriented platform, people respond to it. And then the kind of asterisk over all of this is the general concern about the state of our politics as sort of an overarching one. And there, people respond to the fact that I'm a former intelligence community leader, and I'm a Russian-speaking lawyer, and that right now, with what's kind of going on in Washington, that in addition to those 3 issues, that I'm someone that can just be there to confront the daily static of just what is happening to our democracy in DC. And that's really it. That's my pitch, and that's what voters responded to.
Wow, listening to you talk, we have so much in common. We really do. I also had a father who struggled with addiction and alcoholism, and lost him when I was 9 because of that. And we both I don't have a military background, but we're a military family. My husband serves in the Georgia Army National Guard, and my son is in the Army in Iraq right now on his first deployment. And we have 4 military bases in this district, which makes veterans and military families very important to a representative here. And our issues are very similar as well, healthcare being the number one issue. I believe that it's time for Medicare for all. We need to cut out the middleman, and we've got to make healthcare a right instead of a privilege and catch up with the rest of the world. And of course, a living wage and workers' rights is very important to every district in this country, particularly what's been happening lately. But you're right also, the overall message is one that we have to create a democracy that actually represents voters.
Yes.
It's time for us to be able to speak up and be involved in the policies that directly affect our lives and make government work for us. It's become a real battle between big money and the rest of us. So,
Absolutely. That is something that on the campaign trail where I see Republicans, Democrats, Independents both nod somberly and then clap when I talk about how it's amazing that majorities want help with child care costs, they want universal health care, they want paid family leave, they want all these things to make their quality of life better and living wage for all, and yet it doesn't happen. And the reason why is that there are no powerful lobbies for any of these issues, whereas there's often powerful lobbies against these policies being enacted. These issues come to the fore. And when I tell them that as a candidate for Congress, the general expectation, which I do not follow, and I'm sure you do not either, is, well, you should spend most of your time on the phone talking to donors who can cut you $2,700 checks. And that's just what you're supposed to do. That's what you should do 4 or 5 hours a day if you're doing it by the book. And, well, when I say that that's not how I'm running my campaign, and we just announced with our last quarter officially, and you couldn't plan this because we've had over 1,000 contributions. Our median donation is that infamous number, $27, not $2,700. And those are the kind of people whose concerns we're going to bring to Washington. And that resonates with people, because what I say is the money in politics, it taints us all at any level. But I think that it gets so much worse when you're talking with those numbers, and it just distorts your view as to what's important. You forget because of the company that you're keeping with all that money awash around you. And people really want that change. So I don't know about in your race, but I talk about how I've signed on with the candidate with the contract initiative, where I've pledged, upon pain of resignation from Congress, if I'm elected, to introduce legislation to overturn Citizens United, promote publicly funded elections, do my best to end gerrymandering, and a whole other host of kind of pro-democrat democracy reforms.
Right.
And people really respond to that, because a lot of people talk about that, but when you really put yourself out there and say, yes, that's the kind of priority this is going to be, people respond.
Well, I'm so glad that we have candidates like you running. What you just said about call time, that was I actually lost campaign staff because I wouldn't do call time. That has been the traditional. If you're not going to do call time, you're not a serious candidate. And that's not true, because just like you, we were doing the grassroots organizing that it took, and we both have about the same amount of money, over $100,000 raised, just in small contributions. And I think that's the way to do it, to let people know that you're going to represent them and you're not going to represent those corporate interests that have been represented by all of our congressmen.
Exactly. And I respect people's intelligence. I just ask them to look at the donations, right, and speak for themselves. And people like that. They like that respect. And the other part of it too is that I explain how you realize this is why. I mean, you're a mom of 4. I'm a mom of 2. I've got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. And when I explained
that must be hard.
Middle class moms in Congress. This is why you don't see, in my case, former intel community, in your case, military family, this is why you don't see as many of us in Congress, because it's not only that these big money donations distort the policies that get on the agenda, it distorts who even gets to run, because
Yes.
it discourages people from even getting in the game. So Congress continues to look the way it does and to be as disconnected from the day-to-day concerns as it is. So when people see not only the policy but the systemic issue, then they get mad. They get mad, but then they also get hopeful, because they can see, my goodness, if we really did make a change there, all of this could be on the agenda. And what we talk about here sometimes is the fact that our district happens to have towns like cities like Lawrence, Massachusetts, and Lowell, where the Industrial Revolution in this country was largely born in the 1840s, 1850s. And 100 years ago, you had workers in the textile mills carrying banners waving 8 hours work, 8 hours recreation, 8 hours rest. And I talk to people and I say, people were striking for that 100 years ago. How many of you are getting by on just an 8-hour job a day without any second or third jobs? And all the people, how many of you get, with our roads and our rails and the mess they are, 8 hours of recreation a day or 8 hours rest?
Right.
Almost nobody. And yet people 100 years ago thought that that's in reach. This is a wealthy country, a great country. We can reach for these kind of things if we have politics that actually reflect the aspirations of the people. And I have to just say, because you mentioned Georgia a few times, I have love for Georgia in that my parents briefly lived in Evans. It's a bit of a distance from where you are, but we would go down to the coast and to Savannah on occasion, and I have very fond recollections of the place. So I'm glad that there's someone like you running to hopefully represent that whole coastline area. Gorgeous, gorgeous place, and wonderful people. And
Thank you so much.
I really hope you're there.
Thank you. I think it's a beautiful district too,
Yeah.
and I want to do what I can for the people of this district. I'm actually from up near your area, Connecticut, up near the Massachusetts border. So another thing we have in common. But this has become my home and my priority, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope that we can talk again, because we have a lot to talk about. There's so much that we didn't even get to.
Of course.
So,
and I think that those of us that are of a like mind, that have a hopeful message like this and can reflect kind of a service orientation into politics, we're all in this together. If people like us are elected around the country, we will change the politics of this country.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa.